Are you annoyed because it seems like everyone else is having so much fun with Elden Ring and you just can't quite get the hang of it yet? No worries, I was the same way at first too. That's why I'm bringing you 5 tips to get good at Elden Ring with a couple of bonus tips at the end. Number 5, don't get greedy. If you try to get too many hits in without dodging or blocking in between, the game is gonna punish you for it. Whether it's a boss fight, regular enemy, or online invader, one of the biggest mistakes new players do in Elden Ring is get greedy. Going in for that one extra hit might sound nice in the moment, but you'll start thanking yourself a lot more if you get into the habit of retreating and playing a little bit more safe. This isn't to say you shouldn't be aggressive. This is actually the way you should be playing. It's more about knowing when to actually be aggressive. A side note for this tip is to get used to keeping an eye on your stamina bar. Every new player I see is always just spamming R1 or spamming roll and running out of stamina without realizing. That's why it's important to have a more tactical approach to combat in this game. Learn the enemies, learn the bosses, figure out the right times to be aggressive and when to pull away. The best example of this is the posture that enemies have. If you can tell you're about to break an enemy or boss's posture, take the risk to get that extra hit. It tends to pay off. Definitely be aggressive, just be smart about it. If there's a basic enemy around you, chances are you can spam R1 in their face until they're dead. Just be patient and take time to learn each enemy, which I'll go a little bit more in depth on in a minute. Tip number 4, learn your build and what works for you. Most players that are just starting out don't really understand what a build is or how to create one. And that's fine. If you don't really care about creating a crazy build, just find a weapon that looks fun to use and level up the stat that it scales with. Another thing that helped me when I first started was just looking up easy builds to use for a beginner. I actually have a video on what I think is the easiest Elden Ring build for beginners that I'll link for you at the end. Finding a good build that makes the game more enjoyable to you is one of the most important things you can do. Don't worry about what build you're doing now because you can always change it later, but just keep that in mind. The most important thing in this tip is to level up your weapon. It helps so much, and if you don't have the materials, just search up the location for whatever smithing stone you need or somber smithing stone. Another quick side note for this one will be to level up your health bar a lot. Enemies in this game do way more damage but have less health than in previous titles, so you'll just want to make sure you're not getting one shot. There's also one huge mistake I see new players doing that lowers your health bar without you even knowing it, and I'll tell you about that later on in the video. Another thing a lot of people have asked me to explain are what the squares below your health bar mean. These are just status effects. Basically, they're indicators that let you know if your character has a certain status or buff. For example, if you're using a temporary weapon buff, one will pop up to let you know that the buff is active, and then it will disappear when it's gone. It'll also tell you if you have certain status effects like poison or scarlet rot. Like I said, there's one really important one up here I'll talk about later that's super important to make sure you get rid of. But basically, right now, you don't need to pay attention to any of these. Just play the game, don't take anything too seriously. This game is a lot more forgiving than the others. This brings me to tip number 3, be patient and be okay with dying. I'm gonna go through this one quicker because I want you to hear the last tip since it's the most important one. Most people see dying as failure, but this game is not that way at all. Everyone dies, it's the only way to learn. It's really the same way with anything in life. If you ask any successful person how many attempts it took them to get to where they are now, they're probably gonna tell you that it was a lot. Don't look at death as a bad thing. The game wants you to die. It humbles you and makes you play smarter the next time. They also have smaller checkpoints for bosses in this game now too, so you don't have to worry about running all the way back when you die, so there's really no risk in trying different things when you fight a boss. Don't be afraid to die while you learn attack patterns or try a new way of approaching a group of enemies. It's part of the game and it's important that you learn from each death. Also, don't feel like you need to kill every enemy because you don't, although I would recommend exploring as much as possible. This way, the game is more enjoyable for you and you might be able to find items or materials that can help you in the future. Make sure to find golden seeds and sacred tears to upgrade your flasks as well. You can find videos online that show you the locations of all of these. This takes us to number 2, which is play through with a friend. Not everyone wants to do this, but it can really help if you're struggling. This is what I did in my first Souls game, and it really helped me grasp the game in the beginning and made me want to go back through and beat everything for myself. A side note to this is using a walkthrough. A lot of people consider this a no-no, but that's another thing I did in my first playthrough that drastically improved my experience. I recommend fighting Cowboy for walkthroughs because he takes you through the easiest route and helps you get every single item. And if you use a walkthrough, there's no shame. Anything that helps you get comfortable with the game is important to try out so you can actually enjoy the experience. Walkthroughs also help you because you can see how somebody else approaches certain areas and enemies so you can learn to do the same. You don't have to use a friend or a walkthrough for the entire game, but using it for parts is sometimes a necessity for these games, especially for newer players. The bonus tips I'm going to give you in a minute are ones that not even Souls veterans know, so make sure you stick around for a minute for those. But my number one tip, the most simple yet most important, is to use a shield. But that's not all. Use a shield with the no skill Ash of War on it. This lets you use the normal weapon art for your weapon without needing to two-hand it, and having a shield in this game is basically easy mode. Find one that's 100% physical, meaning you won't take any damage when you block an attack. This means as long as you have stamina, you won't take any damage if you block the attack. This even works on some bosses. I'm pretty sure the first time I fought Margit and tried it, he didn't do any damage to me when I was blocking. Another addition they made to Elden Ring that makes this even more useful is the guard counter. If you hit R2 after blocking an attack, you can get off a pretty powerful attack on them with basically no risk. Using a shield is crucial, and to prove this point, I have a secret to let you in on. This isn't my gameplay. This is my friend playing for the first time using all the tips I just taught you before he started playing. It obviously took him some time to get the hang of it, but I wanted to record some of his gameplay to prove to you that anyone can start this game and learn it with the right guidance. To be fair, I had him playing on my account on New Game Plus, so it was a bit easier for him, but I just wanted him to get a feel for the gameplay and get him interested before he created his own character. Not bad, right? And as promised, here are a few bonus tips that not even veterans of the series know. The first tip is that you can hold down on the D-pad to switch back to your first equipped item, which is usually your flask of Crimson Tears. This is super helpful if you have a bunch of things equipped down there and you need to get back to your healing items quick. I found this super useful during boss fights where I'd need my mount, since I'd be switching between the summoning item and my flasks. I eventually switched the summoning item to my pouch, but I know a lot of people prefer it in the quick selection menu at the bottom. Another little tip I have before I get to the big one is that you can actually get out of grab attacks before they kill you if you spam the left and right bumper. Most people spam the roll button when they get grabbed, but if you actually hit R1 and L1 back and forth as fast as you can, it'll save your life and make sure you don't take nearly as much damage. I have no idea how this works, but it does. The last and most important tip I have for you is how to avoid losing part of your health bar without you even knowing it. If you've seen this lady in the round table hold, she'll ask to hold you. Do not do this. I know it's tempting because, you know, but it will give you a status effect by your health bar that I talked about earlier that debuffs your health by 5%. If you already did this, it's okay. You should probably just get a girlfriend in real life, but all you need to do to get rid of this is to use the item she gave you. It's called the Baldachin's Blessing, and your health will go back to normal in 15 seconds. If you're still struggling finding a good build, or you just want an easy one to play through the game with, check out the video on the screen right here. I take you through step by step to make what I think is probably the easiest build for beginners. Hopefully this video helped you, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.